Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for the RAAD Life. The one show, the only show that radically looks at what's happening here in Orange County. With our community conversationalist, our resident raconteur, the real deal, the man who knows everything that's going on in the county here, RAAD Gantos.
So, Paul, I gotta ask you.
Yeah.
You're used to me being in your ear for an hour a week.
At least, because
not at least, because you never return my calls. So it's only when I'm in the studio. Right?
It resonates. I think about this show all the time.
But oh wow, look at you. This sounds like it's going to cost me this nicety. But no, I was going to ask you, like, how does it feel actually having me in your ear almost daily since last week?
Heavenly.
Oh wow. I think I need to apologize to your wife right now. He really, nothing happens at OC Talk Radio, or what happens at OC Talk Radio stays at OC Talk Radio.
Exactly.
So anyway, it's funny because we do this and I forget. Like I go home after we do our show, honestly, and it's a very engaged conversation. We do it in real time, so it's live. There's no like editing going on.
No filter.
Right? This is no filtered. And boy, it takes me a couple of hours to just recover, man, to recharge. Honestly, it's like if people want to call, I'm not returning your call. No,
me too.
I need to recharge. Oh, you too. Okay, the truth comes out. But so in continuation of our focus in the month of October, we kind of started it at the end of September with current Mayor John Stevens from Costa Mesa, who's running for re-election. We are continuing to focus on candidates that are running. And, we asked them, why the heck are you running, and all that good stuff. But candidates that are running...
Why would anybody run for office these days?
I want to see you run for office.
I run away from office.
Yeah, physically, literally. He runs away from office to be in here. But no, and we said it yesterday. We had Angela Watts, who's running for District 3, I think, in San Clemente, that, it's important. It's important to get to know the people that you're voting for, to get to have a chance to actually meet with them more than the 3 minutes of an answer at a forum or something. Right. And
otherwise, it's just a name on a piece of paper, and we probably don't much about them. So we're either just flipping a coin or trying to just, use some other crazy method.
And sometimes what gets lost in that shuffle of those 1 minute questions and 3 minute answers, or whatever the formula is these days, is that you don't get to benefit of knowing the background of the person, what the skills that they bring to the table, the sensibilities that they bring to the table, their previous involvements in things. And gentleman sitting in front of me, who's being very kind to let me monopolize the mic for a minute here, Zhen Wu is a friend and a gentleman who actually fits that bill. I've known him for a long time. He's a fellow San Clementian, and he's been.
Is that what they call him, San Clementian?
We call him Tritons, but you don't get to say that.
All right.
Yeah.
Only if you graduate.
Only if you graduate from San Clemente High. Woo, Tritons.
Like my son, I'm not.
Yeah, and that was a great picture. I saw you post a picture of that with your son, I think, right? Was it somebody else?
Yeah, it's my son.
It was your son, yeah. And so I want to talk to you a little bit because you've been in San Clemente. How long have you been in San Clemente?
20 years.
Okay. And that town has changed quite a bit.
Yes.
Right? And we talk about the importance of having a sense of that history. Not that it's absolutely mandatory, but it helps, right? To know how things are, a little bit of the history, because sometimes, and I remember, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, I remember going into the city hall one time and Joanne was still there, right? And she showed me, and I don't know if you've seen this, there's a leather-bound binder that has all the city council minutes from the time of Ole Hansen.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I started looking through it, and I started laughing. And she goes, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Because change the names and change some of the specifics of the issues. And we have some things that are still repeating today from 1925. So sometimes with these little communities or cities that we live in, we're not really little, but we are geographically defined. It helps sometimes to have a little bit of time on the ground."
Oh, absolutely. People have institutional knowledge. People know the history, and if you don't have those long-time resident people have been involved for a long time, you lose those knowledge. And when you elect people that's brand new to the city with short residency and they don't know much about the city governments, you make some decision that seem to be a little not based on knowledge, but
Well, and I
this is
think
not good.
no, well, and I think, and again, I'm not discouraging anybody to run that hasn't been around, because first and foremost in my mind is if you're willing, and I want to thank you because you've done it a number of times. I know. I mean, you served on the what is it called? The
Planning
commission.
Commission.
Sorry, I was going to say design review, but planning
Design
commission,
review.
right? Yeah, design review. And
Coach-
in your professional capacity, that was in my mind always a positive to have somebody who has an architectural background professionally and an urban design background professionally, which you do, was always an added benefit in my mind.
I think so. Built environment is a big portion of a city business. So if you look at the city, you have financial issues, you have legal issues, but a large portion of the city business is anything about your built environment.
Especially
Your
in Orange
park.
County. I mean, you can't avoid that the construction is a huge economic engine.
Right, not just the construction, but also the street, the park, landscaping, your beach, all of those, they are part of our habitat, the built environment, and I happen to know a little bit about them.
It's spoken like a real urban designer, right? The thing that, so again, I want to make sure I'm clear. If you are courageous enough and can find the time to step up and actually put your name in, throw your hat in the ring to run for elected office, to be of service to your community, hats off to you. That's awesome. Like Paul said, he runs away from office. I get the occasional twinge, and then I go, maybe I won't do it. But so when you do, that's great. But to your point, yes, I think that institutional knowledge is important, especially in places like we have in San Clemente, because there are certain things, hurdles, blocks, things like that tend to resurface sometimes on different projects, on different efforts that people want to do with the best intentions. Additionally, and I said this yesterday, I think when you're running, and you've been on both sides, you've been in elected, you've been on planning commission, you've been in sort of service roles, but you've also run,
Right.
right? So, and you've run when the city was at large,
Yes.
right? And I want to get back to that, how it is different this time, right? Because now you're running in a district.
Well, the district election, first of all, the district election map was created by me. So I'm a planner. I draw things. And
Yeah.
I play with the maps all day.
Yeah.
So I know I'm very familiar with the situation in the city. So I create the map to the best of my capability.
So talk about that process a little bit for those who don't know, because this is our first time that we're actually voting in districts, right?
Right.
Yeah.
This is forced on San Clemente, or forced on any city, because we were at large election. Sacramento decides that having a by-district election is going to be good to increase the representation of minority groups.
Okay.
So they had this one-size-fits-all approach, and they say, we're going to allow a private attorney to sue a city if they can demonstrate a extremely low bar of evidence that there is some type of a polarization of voting pattern. And so it's very easy to meet that threshold. So that's what happened.
So the city of San Clemente got sued?
City of San Clemente got a attorney letter
Okay.
Asking us to transition into the by-district election. If we don't, we're going into a lawsuit. And multiple cities has attempted to get away with that, but they always lost.
Right.
So there's no point to fight against
No.
it. And the city council decided, okay, we'll just roll over to abide by
Okay.
the state law, which you probably don't like it. The city of San Clemente had this issue back in 2018. 70% of people said, no, we don't want district
Right, I
election.
remember this.
We want an at-large election.
Right.
But at this moment, I think the city council made the correct decision just by following the state law.
Well, it was a state law. I mean, before, I think the time that you're talking about was a time where we were basically internally, personally, like we self-motivated, tried to discuss it, right?
Right.
It wasn't top down kind of from the state, but
The-
this time around it wasn't an option.
Right. That time there was a few residents who were trying
I
to
remember.
make an initiative to do that, but the supermajority of people said no. This is a one town, one team, a small community. We want
Right.
to stay together. But now we have the by-district election.
So how do you feel about that? I mean, I know that we had to do it from the state, and I honestly I was kind of torn about it because of the same thing. Like, one town, one team. My worry was that, we lose the strength that we have, and we both know we're a very engaged community, and now we're kind of basically segregating it almost by zone. How do you feel about that?
I think it's up to the city council members. The reality is, if you are elected by a district, you're going to be more responsive to the constituents in that district.
Right.
So that's the reality.
Which is a positive. I
What,
mean,
it's important to keep the interest of the whole city in mind, because you are making decisions not for your district alone. You're making decisions for the whole city. The five of us will make a decision collectively for the whole city. So the residents or voters in other districts has a stake on any district to pick the best candidate for not just that district but also for the city.
yeah, and I don't think you, if you're really thinking in San Clemente, I don't think you can not do that. I think you have to do that, because just because I'm up on Salvador doesn't mean that I'm not going down to North Beach. Like, I'm not going down to Riviera. Like, so what happens we're not so large like LA, for example, where, if you're on Ventura, you may never go down to, like, Santa Monica, right, or something. But so I got to tell you, I'm asking the question because, and I'm happy. I'm happy with what I'm hearing, because unsolicitedly, you yourself are motivated by saying, okay, the districts comes with a positive of you focus on the interests of the district, but at the same time, you as a candidate who is looking to be in that seat is looking to also be involved in the best interest of the overall city, right? And technically, you could say, no, I'm in just a district, but you're not. So I want to highlight that, because I have not seen anybody yet who has said to me, I don't care what happens over in Talega, for example. I just care about what the west side of the freeway basically does, right? And we both know, like, the real 92672 versus 92673. Like, we have some idiosyncrasies in San Clemente, like any other town,
Right.
And a pride of area. The question I have for you is, because I know you've run before. And by the way, just for those who don't know, we're not doing all the districts. Like, we have people that are sitting in seats that were voted in by at large, and we've got 2 districts out of, is it 5?
Out of 4.
4 districts that are now up for new candidates running. So we actually still have also that institutional history and knowledge by the people who are still sitting there that are not up for re-election,
Right.
that are at large. So they're answerable to the whole city, technically, that voted them in, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a smart thing, too, that I think staggering it was a smart move to do. But how do you feel as a candidate, Zhen, where you basically ran an at large and now you're running at a district? Is it different?
Well, from a campaigning standpoint of view, it's a little easier, I would say.
Okay.
2 years ago, I knocked 3,000 doors.
Yeah, I remember when
There are more than 20,000 doors in San Clemente.
Yeah.
So that's a small percentage of
Okay.
that, less than 10%. No, just over 10%.
And how's it been this time?
But this time, if you knock the same amount of a door, you would knock majority of the doors.
Of your district?
So it makes it a little easier for grassroots campaign.
Yeah.
Because it suddenly becomes physically possible to knock every door and spoke with people. And door knocking is the most effective way to
Yeah.
get your votes
Yeah, especially in a town like ours.
if you're willing to put in the effort.
Yeah. How has it been from a financial side? Because I've heard some people say that it's I mean, intentional. One of the intended aspects was that it basically would maybe make it less costly to
Yeah,
run by district?
yes.
Have you found that to be the case?
Yes,
Okay, cool.
because in the past you need to reach out to 65,000 people or 40,000, a little over 40,000 registered voters. Now there's only a little over 10,000. So every round of a mailer costs you less money,
Less
not
money.
a quarter of them,
Yeah.
because of inflation and also the economy of the
Right.
scales. But it's cheaper,
It's more manageable.
right?
Okay, cool. And so okay, so let's step back for a minute, because I know you have always, as long as I've known you, you've always been interested in being involved in the community, in being of service, right?
Yes.
Where does that come from? Like what motivated you to in the beginning to basically run the first time?
It's a long history. I came to this country 25 years ago as a first generation immigrant. So I went to college and got my master's degrees, started working again, worked for American corporates, climbed the ladder, and then in 2013, I was a VP of a firm, a relatively large size architecture firm.
Well known. Yeah.
And then I decided to quit my job and started my own small practice. At the same time, I have some needs on my kids I need to take care of, and then my family needs. That realized my American dream, so I have my own business to manage and do the way I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
It also allowed me to travel around the world a little bit, so I've had the opportunity to see a lot of nice places, including some of the best Spanish colonial architecture in the cities. And then I had the flexibility, so I want to give back. In 2016, after 17 years of moving to this country, I became an American citizen. So there's something that I want to do to give it back. So my way of doing that is to get involved with local community issues. Because of my background and professional skills on architecture and planning, I applied to Planning Commission. First time they did not pick me.
I remember that.
A few months later, and there were openings, and then they picked me as the last one after rounds of voting. But I was appointed. So fast forward 6 years later, I stepped down from Planning Commission. So that was 6 years on Planning Commission, and for every year I was on Design Review Subcommittee because I'm a professional in the field.
Which, for the people who don't know, that's really the first step. Design review is the more, I don't know if this is fair to say, but it's the more involved and engaged part of Planning Commission, because they're involved more on a more regular basis with that person coming in with a project or a particular thing that's being attempted to get approval, and then the commission gets involved like the design review does kind of the groundwork. Would that be fair?
Part of it is
yeah.
focused on the architectural design and
Yeah.
the site design and landscape, etc.
Yeah.
The Planning Commission focuses more on the policy issues
Right.
and meeting the code requirement, meeting the intent of the general plan, and so on. And for another year, I served on Coastal Advisory Committee. I have this mindset of not just an architect and a planner. I know fair amount of civil engineering. So anything.
Was Bill Hart on that when you were there?
No, Bill Hart was he was on
Coastal, I think.
Coastal,
Yeah.
and he was still involved with a nonprofit organization called Waterworks.
Oh, yeah.
So he went in front of a Coastal Advisory Committee a few times. We give the organization some grants
Yeah.
to organize some city-sponsored events. Bill
Yeah.
was part of that.
Yeah. Well, and we lost Bill, I think it was a year or two ago, and so shout out to Bill. He's been on the show before. He was a friend, and again, one of those people that was very involved. I mean, yesterday I was having a conversation about the fact that, most people don't realize that in San Clemente at one point the railroad was trying to get 2 tracks down on the beach,
Right.
and there was an effort that derailed the rail, and then people came out of that and got involved in other aspects of nonprofits in town.
Yeah,
So- Yeah.
Bill is a perfect example of the type of people that should have been elected
Yeah.
because of the decades-long service to the community, because of
passion.
their involvement, because of their compassion and knowledge about the city. Unfortunately, the politics has
Politics
changed.
yeah.
Party politics plays
Yeah.
a lot of effect on the result of the election. And then Bill missed that opportunity, and then we will have to miss Bill forever.
Yeah. And I only mention that because it is part of that history that you and I know about the town, and the successes and the challenges and how things got eventually to happen and what things were missed out on. And so that institutional knowledge is important. What do you I don't want to leave your time on planning yet. What did you see in 6 years of being on planning that maybe you didn't realize when you got on there? Like, if you were to reflect back on your time on planning, what would you share?
And overall, if I look back my 6 years on Planning Commission, I felt that my involvement did make a positive impact to the community. We reviewed, improved dozens, maybe hundreds of projects. Now, many of them has been built. Some of them are important at important locations.
Can you share some of those?
One is the North Beach. Miramar Theater is still under construction. We're anxiously waiting for its completion.
I said that was the first thing I did at the Historical Society is do a celebrate the Miramar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope I can see it being
I hope
being
so
done,
too.
Soon. But
Yeah.
at the intersection,
Looks like it's happening.
at the off ramp of Interstate 5 at South El Camino Real,
Yeah.
there were 3 corner lots.
Mm-hmm.
Two has been developed. One is completed.
Right.
Another one is almost completed.
Right.
The third one, there was a proposal on that. So that intersection has looked a little better. And then
A lot better. I would say
yeah.
a lot better. Yeah.
And on South El Camino Real, the Tenten Santiago project, at the time, very controversial. I was a part of that decision, and some people hate me for my recommendation. We got it through. It's being built. It looks great.
Yeah, I think the people that are in that south end of town are very happy with some of the improvements that have happened. And again, the south end of town historically was not a a throwback. Historically, that's where the municipal golf course is. There's all the houses that are around there. You've got Cottons. You've got the old Casa Pacifica and all the development that happened with Cypress Shores and Cypress Cove. That part of town, especially that intersection you're talking about, because I know that intersection. That's the way I sometimes used to go up to my parents' house, which is I would go on El Camino Real, and then I would go up, I think it's San Juan, the street that's right after the gas station. And
Yes.
those corners, which had, I think probably one of them at least was a gas station before, and it just sat vacant and kind of degraded that whole look. And there's a ramp onto the freeway right there.
Yeah, the corner
So
lot.
I was happy to see those finally get some love. Yeah.
Well, the corner lot behind the gas station has been vacant for decades.
Yeah.
And the owner wanted to do something, but because it's a very challenging lot, you cannot get access from the own ramp of
Yeah.
the freeway.
Right.
So it has to go from the behind.
Right.
But it can be worked out.
Well, in the old Tommy's site, shout out to the Rock family, but that site is now being developed
Yes.
into, I believe it's a medical
It's a dental office.
dental office. So that's also getting a facelift. So those are great. I want to get back to it later, but anything else that you want to share, like that just jumps at you from your 6 years on planning?
Well, I also realized that a lot of decisions are not just technical decisions based on your professional skills, they are political decisions.
Right.
So you don't always get things done the way you want it.
Even though
because-
technically it's the way to do it.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
but the consideration always goes beyond a technical consideration.
Right.
There could be economic consideration, which Planning Commission is asked not to consider. There's, of course, a political consideration, which is outside of a Planning
Sure.
Commission's purview.
Yeah, and I've seen those decisions at planning. And for people that don't know this, and the only reason I know it's because I spent way too many times going to these meetings, is you can actually go to design review, the public can actually ask to be acknowledged by the city, send an email, let them know what the projects are. This is just part of the process, and some people maybe are not aware of. You can also attend planning commission, and if you do get engaged that way, and the city of San Clemente, I think do we still have that that program where people can actually go in and kind of learn about the ins and outs and how the city operates and stuff like that? Do we still have that?
That's a leadership San
The Leadership San Clemente
Clemente.
program?
I was a graduate from
Yeah, you
that
and I-
program.
yeah.
I think they still have it.
Okay, so again, I'm putting the word out to encourage civic engagement. Like, go out and find out. There, you can go to these meetings. They're not closed meetings. You don't have to wait till a city council meeting. A lot of stuff happens at design review and planning that by the time it gets to city council, it's either on the agenda or not on the agenda. So definitely inform yourself. Regardless what city you're in, we just happen to be talking about San Clemente. What do you feel? And thank you for bringing up the point that it's not just the technical. Like, there's other things that are consideration. Sometimes it's just timing. It's an issue of timing. Sometimes I mean, we've seen projects come in, and it was just not the right time. And 6 years later, a similar project, but maybe less impacting, more sensitive, more appropriate for the city, basically gets green lighted and it moves just right through. So there's sometimes timing is also part of that. It's just not what is professionally sort of technically acceptable. What do you think about, and I'm bringing this up because we started talking about it a little bit, what do you think are some of the things that are facing San Clemente? You've been there long enough.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the city change. I've been there since '87, a little bit longer than you, but we've seen the city change, and we've seen the city go from very sleepy and like, oh my God, where do you live, all the way back down there, to the fact that we now have everything, including property values, increasing, going down the coast and coming up the coast, and now all of a sudden we're in a more visible thing. What do you see challenges and opportunities that are facing San Clemente?
There are lots of challenges at San Clemente these
Okay.
days. I think, in my viewpoint, the biggest challenge, there are a few of them. I say just.
Yeah, just give us a few of them.
I just started by saying that the San Clemente has a centennial general plan.
Yep.
The general plan is the vision of San Clemente people. After years of public process, the original mission was established by the founder of San Clemente.
Yeah,
and
Ole
it's
Hansen.
incorporated into our general plan. It's supposed to be good for 20 years. But in recent years, it seems that some of the council member or some of the other people, they start having less respect to that general plan and the long-term vision. General plan is
What do you think that's because of?
essentially a constitution for our long-term
Yes,
development.
and when did we do that? We did the general plan update when? When was the last one?
It was early 2010s. It took effect on, I believe it was 2013.
Okay, so we're about just a little over 10 years
A
into
little over
it.
10 years.
And we have technically another 8 or 10 or 9 years before we have to do it again, right? Because there's a
Right,
20 years that you have
right.
to do it.
You don't have to revamp it, but
Yeah.
it's time to look at it.
Okay, so what do you think? Were you happy with the general plan the way it was? The
I
update?
think so. I respect the general plan. I
Yeah.
think it's such an important document. Almost like if you need to follow the Constitution.
Right.
For development in San Clemente, the general plan is a document that you need to follow.
So what do you think is driving some of the people that are in decision-making positions or in leadership positions to maybe sway away from that?
A number of reasons. First of all, as you pointed out, the lack of knowledge of history.
Okay, and therefore
And,
lack of respect of the history of the town, maybe.
and
Okay.
understanding of the general plan.
Okay.
Our personal ambition, and they have different vision.
Agendas, basically, personal agenda.
Yeah, different personal agenda. Then, of course, the world is always changing. So we need to adapt to the changing world, and that's how they react.
Yeah, but the
sometimes
general
it deviates from the general plan to the point that it doesn't matter to them, and
Right.
that's not right.
And so why? Okay, so that's one thing that you're
That's one
saying as a
thing.
challenge. What else do you think is a challenge?
Financial issues. One of the biggest challenges these days is that financial issue. The city The city cannot balance its budget at this moment. We have a 2-year city budget for 2024 to 2025, and then 2025 to 2026.
Okay.
In each of the 2 years, we have a projected revenue that's about 2 million lower than projected expenditure.
Okay.
That budget has not included the proposed center replenishment project,
Which is a big cost.
which is a big cost
Right.
in addition to that. So even without the spending on the center replenishment projects, we are in trouble.
You know what? You know what I suggested yesterday when we had another person running here.
Yeah.
I said if they're going to trench the harbor in Dana Point to allow big, massive yachts, mega yachts to come in, they should give us the sand in San Clemente for the beaches. That should be part of the Harbor Development Authority's contribution for the negative impact on traffic that they're going to have on our community. So they should give us the sand from the harbor, and that should basically, there you go. There's something that we should be going for.
Oh, yeah,
What are you going to do
yeah.
with all that sand? We'll take it.
Yeah.
Less transportation costs that way.
So we need to find more money. We need to
But-
balance the budget. The current council decision to make sand replenishment the top priority.
Yeah.
Just add to that issue. I'm not opposing sand replenishment. Everybody likes a sand replenishment, but the real question is, where does the money come from, and how do you balance the budget? City has about $30 million as a on account at the end of the fiscal year, maybe 2 years ago. Last year, we had a one-time big expense to fix the Casa Romanica
Yeah,
landslide.
the landslide on the back
That
side.
costed $8 million, which was moved from a reserve fund for replacement of a pedestrian bridge. The bridge got damaged by another landslide. So our reserve fund is dropping at a speed that's make people feel very uncomfortable.
And now you've got this emotional connection with the sand and the beaches, which is totally understandable. We are a beach town, but at the same time, where's that going to come from? And prioritizing things. And I think, you know what? Here's this other thing which I don't think anybody really talks about, Zen, and I'm really interested in your opinion on this, because we also, not just ourselves, but at the county as a whole, but also San Clemente, we are also an aging community. We got people that are older, and I'm not saying that in terms of just we have a lot of seniors. I'm saying that when you have a changing nature of the demographics of the people in town, then the municipalities and the needs to provide services for the demographics also changes.
Of course.
And so now you're going to have, and at the same time, if your whole economic engine is based on sales taxes, for example, well, you have an older population that's increasing that is less likely to spend more on sales. So now your sales taxes potentially could go down. Your property taxes are stuck because they're staying in their homes, so there's no market adjustment to some of this stuff. So, and I don't want to focus on that specifically. All I'm trying to drive to is that we have a changing nature of things. And to your point, the general plan is a guideline. It's a guiding document, right? The how you implement it needs to be, to your point, flexible, and has to be current with what's happening.
Of course.
Right. So what do you, I mean, for those who don't know, what is the city looking at potentially at a cost for the replenishment of the sand, and how often would we need to do it?
The most important project is Army Corps of Engineers project, which is currently under construction,
Yeah.
almost down for this year. It put 250,000 cubic yards of sand on the beach every 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
That's going to cost the city in the future, not the first time. The first time is subsidized, hugely subsidized by the state and the federal government.
Yeah.
The future phases, our local contribution is 50%, which translates to about $2 million per year for the city.
Per year.
Per year.
So why do we have the problem that we have? I kind of know a little bit, but I don't know enough. Like, why do we have a situation where we're constantly needing to replenish the sand on the beaches?
Because we're losing sand, because the watershed of the San Juan Creek is a feeding stream of sand into
Right.
San Clemente.
Right.
and the watershed has been covered by concrete, roads, development, and so on. We're talking about cities beyond San Clemente.
Yeah, and I kind of knew this, and I wanted it to be from an urban designer perspective because yes, I mean the sediment that would naturally go down and end up on our beaches, right? Whether it's San Clemente or any other town, has been basically removed out of the equation in a way, right? With
Yes.
additional development, with encroachment on the watershed, with stuff that basically it's debris and stuff that goes in there, we are not getting the sediments that historically would have maybe made it to our beaches.
Right.
So that's why people need to replenish the sand because you're not getting what you need to maintain your coastline.
Yes.
Okay. And then the minute we say anything about dredging and basically moving the sand off the coast, because we're a surf city, we now have conversations about is it going to affect the surf, the spot, is it going to affect the way the waves break and all of this stuff, right?
I'm only a very amateur surfer, so I
Yeah.
don't know too much about this.
Well, I don't either.
Spot, but
You surf more than I do.
My understanding is the T Street is a reef break.
Okay.
Chester's is a reef break.
Okay.
So, how much does sand affect those surfing spots? I don't think it's gonna affect a lot. If you have a sandbar underneath the water,
Yeah.
which creates a break, that may be
Right, but that's not the situation in those two breaks.
affected.
Yeah.
Those are not situation on those two most important breaks.
Yeah, and I'll put the word out for anybody. I know a few people that are like, I think there's a few of them actually that are having a little reunion, the people that actually started Surfer Magazine that came out of San Clemente. If any of you guys know more about this, like how much is there truth in the fact that if we actually dredge off coast to San Clemente to actually try to replenish versus bringing the sand from further away, how much will that affect the surf, which is basically a tourism value for the city? Because I don't know the answer to that one. You surf more than I do. I haven't been on a board. So yes, I just said that, and I live in San
It's going to
Clemente.
change the the pattern in front of State Beach, maybe 204, maybe near the pier. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a surfing
See, you just never know
expert.
what you're going to hear on the
But-
Red
but
Light,
it's
man.
gonna
We're
cha-
talking urban all the way to surfing.
The underwater terrain will be changed.
Yeah.
Therefore, the surfing pattern will be
Yeah.
changed. Some good spots may got lost. The other one may be
But that's not.
created.
But that's not where the sand's coming from currently, right? The proposed sand. For
The proposed sand are from some borrowed sites.
Okay.
The first one was in Oceanside,
Okay.
and then we moved to Sunset to Seal Beach.
Okay. So again, Harbor Authority. Hey, maybe there's some use for your sand in San Clemente. What do you see? Because we are a built-out city, more or less, right?
Mhm.
Especially in certain areas. We are also a city that is, I think, experiencing a pretty, long past due in a way, increase in property values. Like we kind of dragged a little bit behind some of other cities in Orange County, but we're seeing that increase. So it makes the value of properties that maybe currently have like a single bungalow style something, right? That those properties are more valuable, and we're a built-out city. So do we have a challenge also in maintaining the character of the town that is under more and more strain because of the values increase? Do you see any of that? Or did you see any of that when you were at planning?
Well, I think the challenge to maintain the character of our small town character has something to do with not just architectural style, but more importantly, the building height, building massing, and public places. Del Mar has a height limit of 2 stories.
The T zone, yeah.
If your property sits on a sloped side, maybe 3 stories,
Yeah.
depending on the situation.
Yeah.
That's decided many years ago by the city council. Can we look at it again? Maybe we can always look at it again. But it's going to change the character. It's going to change the feeling of that street space.
But where do you see, I guess what I'm saying is, like, are we looking at a city that is somewhat defined, that will more or less, unless something drastic happens, remain somewhat defined.
Yeah,
We don't really have a lot of room to.
as you pointed out, we are a city that's being built out. So the remaining opportunities are infill projects. They are rehabilitation, remodeling type of projects.
And that's where you need that that sort of serious review process, right? Because you could easily, if especially if we're veering away from some of the guidelines of the general plan, you could easily find yourself in a situation where we are now looking at inappropriate, overscaled,
Yes.
potentially, right?
No, those decisions are delicate decisions, and the devils are in details. So, if you have someone with a deep knowledge and insight into those issues, then you can make a good judgment call. You cannot make up decades of professional experience in a few months. So, so having some knowledge and skills in these fields will help.
What are some of the?
Because everybody can say, I want a balanced approach. But where exactly is the balance?
Well, and balance is
Right.
a very ambiguous term.
It's
Like,
very
what is your balance and what
Right.
is my balance?
There are people who is a rubber stamp of any development.
Yeah.
There are people who oppose any development. So you have to reach a balance somewhere in the middle. But you need a skill. You need a trained eyes to make that decision.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think I want to kind of bring this home a little bit. We talked about some of the things that you feel good about that being involved with when you were on planning. Was there anything that you felt was, oh man, it was good that we actually had the scrutiny and we ended up avoiding a mistake? Was there anything that comes to mind, like one thing that maybe comes to mind that happened while you were on planning that was like, it was good that we had that technical skill in your presence there to basically maybe shed some light on something that would have maybe gone unnoticed? We don't have to we don't have to talk about who it was or whatever, but just in generalities, were there things like that came your way?
Yeah, I give you one example. I can name the
Yeah,
project.
yeah.
That's 1010 Santiago.
Okay.
That project is a 3-story building,
Okay.
mixed use,
Okay.
with retail on the ground level. Now they have a Mediterranean style Italian food restaurant
Yeah.
with a gelato on the ground level. On top there are, I believe it was 7 condos, and it looks great.
Uh-huh.
At the time it's in front of a planning commission. The building is just a little bit too high. And I was the one who advocated to lower the building by 18 inches. Applicant told the planning commission, and later they told the city council that it cannot be done. Technically cannot be done. That's not true.
Yeah.
And it's being built that way.
Mm-hmm.
It looks great.
Mhm.
And not only it looks great, it complies with one of the important policies in general plan. Otherwise, it wouldn't. That it would cut off the visual connection from the freeway to the ocean. So people would be aware, hey, this is a coastal community. Because you don't look at the building itself, you look at a cumulative effect. If every building is built that way, suddenly people driving on the freeway cannot see the ocean. They're not aware that this is a coastal community.
No, and
So lowering that building height by only 18 inches, it was very controversial, and for that reason, some people don't like me forever, but I think I did the right thing.
Right, but
I advocated for it, and the whole planning commission supported it, and the city council supported it.
well, and here's the thing: you being there and having that technical background, which I think, again, let's not forget, like we said, until otherwise noted, real estate development, construction, architectural guidelines, ideas, thinking outside the box, being solution oriented to find a solution versus, no, we're not going to redo our plans, we're not going to look at our structural plans for the roof line, whatever it is. When you have somebody that has the ability to speak with authority and say, well, actually, here's how you could do it, then it basically not only makes it difficult for somebody to not go that extra mile, which I've always said, if you want to come to San Clemente and do a project, be respectful of the fact that we deserve a unique project offering and not just a regurgitation of something you did somewhere else. Okay? Because otherwise, and you and I have seen these projects, we mentioned the Miramar. Okay, at one point the Miramar was going to be a 5-story building with a reconstructed tower that was going to be now the new historical icon or whatever, with 2 underground parking levels, right? And it was not an appropriate or sensitive project, and it meant that the person who was trying to get it through was now spending money and time not being able to get it through, versus a responsible project would have been out of the ground, making money, and open for the benefit of the community.
Right, right. It's not always about the maximization of your profit, right? We have a policy and that we have to uphold. So at a certain point, you have to make a decision that that if you don't want to follow the rules, then maybe this is not.
Then don't scream why you're not getting through. I mean, and I will say, if I was sitting in that chair, okay, and I was basically a member of that planning commission or a member of design review, and I was looking at you, and I knew that you had the technical capabilities to speak with authority on something, I would look at what you're suggesting, and I would feel empowered in making my decision, because on my side of the table, I've got somebody who's speaking with authority. I don't have to take what's being told to me at necessarily face value. And that's super important.
Right. I try not to just criticize things.
No, it's not your
I
character.
try to give them a constructive comment and what can be done to make it work.
Yeah, you're there to help them, actually. If truth be known, design review is there to help facilitate and make better what somebody's coming in for. And you and I both know professionally that when you take a first stab at something, that's not necessarily the best solution. That's just your first take on it. And then as you develop it further, as you're faced with challenges that then you have to creatively problem solve, the project gets better.
Right. If you yield to everything they want with the fear of, oh, maybe they don't come here, then very quickly the small town character, the Spanish village by the sea atmosphere will be lost cumulatively, but it will reflect over the time within a few years.
And by the way, I don't think at this point in time, there may have been a day where we thought we had to worry about whether they were going to come here or not, but I think at this point in time, San Clemente can actually stand up and say, you know what, we know why you're coming here. You're coming here because of the uniqueness of the community, because of the fact that it is different. And if you're going to come here and you're not going to respect that, which is actually why, the money in a way, right? Then no.
An example we can learn something from is the Carmel by the Sea.
Yeah.
Wonderful city, and they keep their historical character.
Carmel by the Sea, yeah.
They keep their charms extremely well. And
I don't see people not going there.
Right.
Or people with means, or that somehow it negatively impacted the value of the properties.
So sometimes you need to stay firm with your vision, with your general plan, and with your policy.
So would it be fair to say that in this run for city council, that your motivation is that you're seeing that we need to have that kind of, similar to what you had experience providing at planning, that we need that at city council, and that's why you're kind of running?
I think so. I think that's part of the reason.
Okay, what else?
The big reason, the city council needs people who know accounting and finance, legal issues. We have 3 attorneys on the council, so there's no lack of knowledge on that. Then the city council needs something who understands development and the built environment.
Okay.
I think if we have these 3...
And we don't have that on city council now.
No, we don't. The planning commission has not produced any council member for years, almost for a decade.
And how has, I mean, again, how has it been for you to run? How many candidates are also running for the district?
For the District of 4, we have 2 candidates.
Okay.
It's me versus another candidate.
Okay, and how has the reception been to you? I mean, have you found you're knocking on all these doors? What has the reaction been? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing it's a lot of positive, but have you seen anything come out of your interaction that has kind of added maybe to your thinking about what you can bring to the table? Like, have there issues that come up by some people from those districts now that they have a chance to verbalize their concerns from a district perspective?
Absolutely. If I get elected, I'm not going to do the projects I dream about, what is good for
Yeah.
the city. It has to come from the people. That's the reason I knock doors. I've knocked a lot of doors, and I've spoken with a lot of people. And some of them would share with me. I ask them, what's your concern at the city council that I can help to address?
What have they been saying? Like top three things that they.
Homeless is one thing, public safety another thing. Um, Other things, they're all over the place.
So what do you think about what? So you mentioned homeless. What do you think we are? Do we have a homeless and affordable housing problem in San Clemente? Do we have potential solutions? What do you think about that? Because that seems to be something also on a lot of people's minds these days.
We do, of course we do. These two problems are somewhat related, but they're separate problems. So let's talk about homeless first.
Sure.
Homeless is a regional problem.
Right.
It's our society problem.
Right.
So my approach to homeless is that we're not going into a competition with other cities to drive them around. That doesn't solve the problem. I will work with the rest of the city council, work with the county and our sister cities to try to find a location. Now, mostly likely rely on the county because they have a resource. They have the services that funded by the state. Find a location to establish a regional homeless shelter. I don't think it should be San Clemente because San Clemente is not in a centralized location of Orange County or even for South Orange County.
And I think the things that you're pointing out to that is that the central location, because there's certain other services that need to be available or in proximity in order to make a homeless shelter actually function and do the reason it's what it's there for.
Right. Shelter just
Yeah.
giving them overnight to stay,
Right,
but
right.
you also have mental health facilities.
Right.
You have all the other services that the county provides.
Yeah, and Mayor Stevens, when he was on here, it seems like the conversation in the back rooms, if you will, of the county is to look at it from a regional solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about affordable housing?
Affordable housing is a real issue because the people cannot afford, especially the young family, or if you're trying to buy a starting home in San Clemente, you cannot find any. Yeah, it's very expensive. So, in the working class, there's a lack of housing opportunities for them.
Would you say that goes beyond just the purchasing of a home, but also like rental?
Rental too.
Okay.
So
what could we potentially do? I'm not putting you on the spot, but what do you think we could how can we address that?
well, the city was asked by the state, right? The state comes down really hardly on our city. Huntington Beach is being sued by the city, and
Yeah.
they're suing the state, by the state.
Yeah.
So San Clemente was assigned a certain number of housing units. We don't need to build them, but we under the obligation, we are required to create the policies to make them work. And the housing department, state department of housing and community development, HCD, approved our plan, which is a housing element in our general plan.
And is that really kind of like a reassignment of existing inventory to meet that requirement?
Yes, the
okay.
latest effort is to create a housing overlay that we essentially upzone those areas to allow mixed use and multifamily housing projects.
Okay.
And most of them are along Pico, in front of us, for example, Pico Corridor, Pico Plaza. The parking lot in front of
Like Michael's
like
and
Lowe's, Michael's, Walmart, and so on. And that's a big chunk of that. If someone wants to come over, do a mixed use or just a multifamily housing project, that they are entitled to do so. And there are some incentive provided to them, especially if they provide.
Yeah, and for those
affordable
in
housing.
San Clemente, they're going, oh, what is this out of the, like, this is crazy thinking. They're considering doing the same thing across from Sunflower in Bristol next to South Coast Plaza. And I think if you start thinking about it beyond what traditionally we have thought of in terms of residential neighborhoods, where you're basically on a cul-de-sac or you're on a street with houses on both sides and sort of your typical subdivision, The younger people may actually want a place that's a little bit more engaged and has a little bit more like sort of urban living, if you will, where you have the services below, you're living above, its proximity, like you're talking about the Pico corridor. You have access on El Portal, and you have access down to the freeway on Pico. So you have in and out of the city a couple of ways to get, if you're commuting, basically.
Right,
But
right.
if you're not commuting and you're in town, you're basically, electric biking it down to North Beach. I think we need to enhance the way that we think about housing, to your point.
Yeah, those if they gotta build or develop it that way, they will become more. They're more walkable communities.
Yeah, more walkable
And of
communities.
course, there will be a lot of impact on the traffic on Pico. So that's something that we need to address when those developments materialize.
Right.
But right now, that's a plan, and it's being submitted to the state, and the state approved it. We just have to see if they happen. If after long time of period, nothing happened, then we will have to update those plans and try to relax the development standards again further to encourage those to happen. This is required by the state. Another place that we can possibly to add some housing units, especially affordable ones, is along South El Camino Real. That area is they're rezoned or zoned as a mixed use.
Yeah.
Some of them are neighborhood commercial, but affordable housing are entitled to.
And
be-
for
to be there.
for those that may poo-poo that idea, think about what it was like before those surfing cottages or those townhouses were built. Think about the proximity to the surf spots. Talk about the house of trestles that used to be a halfway house that became more of a like a hostel almost for surfers. There's a lot of potential innovation if you think outside the box. The other thing, and I'll ask you this because we're running out of time, and it's sort of, well, I'm getting older, so that's part of it. Part of it is this show when we first started was basically focused on baby boomers, Paul, right? and so we have another reality, which is yes, we have to provide sort of smart housing, and when we say affordable, okay, something like $120,000 or $130,000 a year or something qualifies you for aid in Orange County. So when you say affordable, remember you're saying affordable in Orange County. That does not the same as saying affordable, let's say in Paris, California, or it's a subjective term. Don't get hung up on the terminology. So when we have that for the people that are starting their lives, right? And they may be looking for a different product than just a single family home. To your point, it may be a mixed use, pedestrian friendly, walkable community kind of environment experience. We also have an aging population.
Yes.
The county has an aging population. San Clemente, I think last time I looked at the median age, it was over 45, right? So we have, for those who don't know, and the numbers, I bark at the numbers being underestimated, okay, is we have 25% of Orange County is going to be over the age of 65 by 2030. Okay, so that's a consumer base, that's a voter base, that is a base that has a changing needs, still active, still involved, still wants to be in their familiar environments. But we are also needing to look at that.
Of course.
Housing, municipal services, you have a different population.
Right. So a simple thing would be sidewalk accessibility. To
Accessible
make,
community standards, yeah.
to make them more accessible and make them more friendly to people who are bound by on wheelchairs. And I just did some minor modification of my own house.
Yeah.
In order to be able to age in my place.
Age in place.
Yeah, I just added little ramps to my front porch. It's movable. If
Yeah.
I need it, I can put it there.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand. If one day you become bound to the wheelchair, you cannot even get out of your door.
And by the way, you're not bound to the wheelchair necessarily only because you're older, by the way.
No.
Okay, it's also because you fell on your face playing pickleball at Lifetime, and you basically now are going to be in that wheelchair maybe, or somehow limited on a scooter or something,
Right.
for a duration of time. You may have injured yourself in a surfing accident, right?
yeah.
So when we talk about this, I want to really, here's the funny irony. This show started almost 10 years ago because I'm sitting in here talking about aging in place. And Paul will tell you, right? Because the gentleman sitting in front of me that I was brought in to be a guest on his show was a general contractor building homes on the coast. I came in, he had not done his